Next up, we're going to be looking at more souring beers. We actually have a foeder on the way from Italy right now. It just got to the port in Italy. It's basically a 1,000-gallon brandy foeder, or a 1,000-gallon brandy barrel. So that method just basically can create consistency across beers.
So talk some more about sour beers. A lot of people don't understand what sour beers are.
Souring or bugs in beer, active fermentation, or infection of beers. We like to pitch different ingredients as far as lactobacillus or Brettanomyces in the beer. And it literally, those are different types of strains of yeast, wild strains of yeast with that. And what we activate out of that is it brings out different dryness, tartness, and characteristics of beer that most people wouldn't want. But we actually like to further that process and look for it.
In the past, you've had several sour styles. You have one on right now.
We have quite a few on
San
today.
Marco Sour, you've had...
we have the San Marco Sour Blonde. We have Sarah Lovely is our Raspberry Dark Sour. We do a Goza, which is more of a traditional with beer. And then we also have our Hipster Popsicle, which is conditioned Goza with cherries and lime.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday evening. I am your host of your favorite sports show, Satara J with Get in the Game. Thank you for joining us this Tuesday after Super Bowl. And what an exciting Super Bowl it was. And just in case you forgot how the Chiefs came away with that paramount victory against the San Francisco 49ers, let's take a look.
Now 2nd and 6. Williams makes a cut and will roll into the end zone for the touchdown. No flags. Take a look and make sure that he didn't step out, which clearly he does not. Anthony Sherman, the fullback, he's the one who really helped secure the edge. A bad angle.
And there you have it. That was Damian Williams, Travis Newsome here to my left, supporting me here on Get in the Game as we recap the Super Bowl that the Chiefs were able to come away with. They hadn't won one since 1969. That's a long time, Travis. Here joining me this evening is my guest, Travis Newsome, host and owner of HBCU Football Matters. He's going to tell us what that means, but talk about the victory of the Chiefs. What an exciting way for longtime head coach Andy Reid to finally get a win.
Yeah, Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs fans, they've been waiting for a long time. 50 years, the halfway point of the 100-year anniversary of the NFL this time around. You know, the fans that came out, they were the reasons why the tickets were averaging $6,000 per person. So you see the excitement, and most teams that haven't been here in a long time, you can see the excitement of a team like this. A flagship team, by the way. Their owner, Lamar Hunt, owned the AFL, started the AFL, and to see this happen 50 years after their first one was spectacular the other night.
Exciting. And you were actually there. I was here in Jacksonville hosting a Super Bowl party of my own. Get in the Games first. Thank you to our sponsors, Pink Salt Restaurant and 227 Boutique, for sponsoring that. But how was the atmosphere in Miami? I can only imagine that it was crazy.
Yeah, the atmosphere in Miami is always going to be crazy, but even more so when there's something as big as the Super Bowl. All eyes on them, and all eyes were everywhere with anyone who had walked by. I mean, you had all types of people who were there in terms of teams they represented. It wasn't just the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. You had all 32 teams once upon a time that were represented at this time. And then, of course, the parties, the afterlife. All the things Miami is already known for on steroids. But we went to the NFL experience as well on Saturday afternoon. Everybody was out there. Someone even ran a 4.34 a 40-yard dash at the NFL experience, and it was absolutely crazy. So, yeah, it was an excellent time for everyone involved. You know, the Super Bowl week, I believe, is probably just as exciting, if not more exciting, than the game itself. We just lucked out by having an excellent game this time around.
Well, it's interesting you said that because they actually said that viewership went up, making it the most watched Super Bowl game in a few years because of how Kansas City came back. I mean, at one point, they were down by 20, well, not down by 20, it was 20-10 going into the fourth quarter, and they scored 24 points in that fourth quarter. Patrick Mahomes, taking a look at my stats, Patrick Mahomes became the first quarterback under 25 to not only win an NFL MVP, but also a Super Bowl. He was second to Ben Roethlisberger, and then Andy Reid, of course, 61 years old. You know, a lot of times, Travis, people talk about coaches getting into the Hall of Fame. In your opinion, has Andy Reid now sealed the deal on his argument for getting into the Hall of Fame?
Well, based on what he had just done, he has gotten his championship. He's been there before. We call it now the Bill Cowher rule. One championship is good enough. Longevity is there. You're with a historic franchise. Why not? He was with the Philadelphia Eagles at one time. Now the Kansas City Chiefs. Goes there, wins one, lost with Philadelphia, another flagship NFL team. Why not go into the Hall of Fame? He's been doing this for years. And it's not just as a head coach. He'll go in as a head coach. But his entire contribution to the NFL as a coordinator and everything else.
And as a man who can work wonders with quarterbacks. He's like the quarterback whisperer. And speaking, I'm glad you brought up the Eagles because you know that's my team. Even though you came on my set with the New York Jets hoodie on, we're not going to die this time. Why not? But listen, the interesting thing that you just brought up, comparing, talking about Andy Reid spending 14 years with the Eagles, I thought it was very nice for the organization to shout out to him that it was his moment. And speaking of his moment, the Chiefs and the Eagles, only two teams in NFL history that converted multiple fourth down conversions. Why were they so successful doing that a couple nights ago?
I don't know. I mean, you have the customary 2 weeks you wait in between games. Other people probably had the chance to do that well, but this is also a close Super Bowl. And a lot of the previous Super Bowls, there weren't many times where it was close enough to have to worry about taking those chances. If it's not, it was one team and the other didn't have to worry. This time around, I think because it was so competitive and looking at the comeback and knowing Mahomes' history, you had to take more chances for them, and Mahomes' team had to take more chances because they were behind.
Right, absolutely. The thing I loved about this Super Bowl, you have two very quiet, meek, gentle, Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, not coaches that you see running up and down the sidelines, throwing their headsets, yelling at players. Very calm, but witty. And when you look at the statistics of this game, because you talked about how close it was, Kansas City total yards 397, San Francisco 341. One of the biggest differences obviously was time of possession. Kansas City was able to control that just a little bit. They had 33 minutes, San Francisco 26. But when you look at how the Chiefs came back, a lot of people were kind of concerned because earlier in the season, especially in the postseason, we saw them down to the Texans. They were down against the Titans. They kind of got down against the 49ers. What makes this team so good at being resilient and coming back for the win?
They've been there and done that.
Right.
They feel comfortable. If they're down, I guess the guys on the sideline don't get down like most teams do who haven't been through that scenario. But at the same time, it was somewhat of an anomaly of what had happened this season. When you look at how Mahomes was the guy, the arm, the legs that also ran and got them to where they were. But it was Damian Williams who really stepped up. And he's the reason why the numbers changed in terms of time of possession. They became more of a running team. Mahomes had his troubles, and we saw it at one point, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And the running game got him out of a lot of this mix. And then finally, the big run, Williams averaged 6.1 yards a carry when the game was over. I believe the wrong man got the MVP.
Well, this is the quarterbacks league. So you and I both know that even though, because when you look at it, Pat Mahomes, he didn't have one of his best games.
He didn't have Pat Mahomes' game.
Right, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Damian Williams, however, 104 yards and 1 touchdown. And what was interesting to me, if we can remember going into this game, Raheem Mostert on the other side, he was the one getting all of the media attention, having been on 7 teams in his 5 years, and how he came on late in the season and looked phenomenal. And they held Kansas City's defense held San Francisco, all of their run game, to under 50 yards. Talk about how that defense came on late in the season and was able to, even though their offense wasn't scoring points, they were able to hold the other team.
I don't know. I guess it goes back to San Francisco being known as a West Coast team. Automatically, whether college or pro, you think finesse when you think out west. And that's exactly what San Francisco seems to bring. They had somewhat of an identity of a running team, but they still came down to passing the ball. Garoppolo, as you saw, was pretty successful in the beginning. I think when Kansas City defensively was able to face a guy like Derrick Henry and pretty much stop him compared to what he was doing, they had the recipe to stop other running backs. Neither one on the roster of the 49ers is Derrick Henry, who led the league in rushing this past season.
Now, quiet as it was kept, we expected, I think a lot of people expected tight end Travis Kelce to boast higher numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it just proved how many weapons the Chiefs had, because you saw Sammy Watkins come alive and Tyreek Hill, who we all know is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
They were the two that really proved to be important in that passing game.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, when you look at Kansas City as an overall team, because we know what happens to teams that go and win the Super Bowl. We don't see them the next season.
No.
They have a really dumpy year the next year. Do you think that if the Kansas City Chiefs, if they're able to keep all their important pieces in play, could we see them possibly making a postseason run again next year?
Of course, a postseason run. A Super Bowl run? I don't know. There's other teams out there who are starting to pick it up and probably have an opportunity. But it's always going to come down to that main cog, which is Patrick Mahomes. That big contract he's waiting for right now, after his physical, that big contract he will get. He's going to be the end-all, be-all. Kelsey's going to be the security blanket, as always, with great tight ends. Tyreek Hill, they were able to stop him the other day. Sammy Watkins, a guy who just picked up, he reemerged because he came back from what he was doing with Buffalo, the reason why he was a first-round pick out of Clemson, coming to Kansas City, making big plays when he needed to, which opened up the running game and Damian Williams having the game he had. I think with the offensive line in place, defensively, they don't have to be spectacular, especially with Holmes. You just have to be good enough.
Right.
It's not like 2000 when the Baltimore Ravens had an excellent defense and Trent Dilfer. They have an excellent offense and a solid defense, and they can get it done.
Let's talk about some of the younger quarterbacks in the league as we kind of shift the conversation, because we saw younger quarterbacks this year kind of make their stamp in the league. We saw the Lamar Jacksons, the Pat Mahomes, the Kyler Murrays. Even though he didn't have a phenomenal season, he still was chosen at NFL honors as Offensive Rookie of the Year. Talk about how the league is kind of changing towards the younger quarterback and the shifty, more mobile quarterback that can kind of make plays on the run.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're changing because they have to change. The colleges are forcing them to change. The offenses these colleges use in which these players become so successful, well, this is the way to continue that domination or continue that growth in the NFL. You can't have an option quarterback in college and throw the run and shoot in the NFL. You have the spread offense in college. Kyler Murray was excellent with that. He comes to the NFL, not with a great team. He still showed up. And then, of course, all of these rules that benefit the quarterback anyway does not help. So he had a chance to thrive there. Lamar Lewis, I still say, is a running back who happens to pass the ball. People don't like to hear that, but he's done exactly that. But he had a surrounding cast to make him as great as he turned out for this year. His problem is going to be continue to do it for years forward as NFL coordinators figure out his rights and wrong the same way they did with Michael Vick. They stopped him enough to not let him go to get a championship. And Colin Kaepernick, they stopped him enough until he got injured after all of the hits from being in the spread offense.
Yeah, and speaking of Lamar Jackson, obviously when you're on a team that's being coached by John Harbaugh, who was, phenomenal this season with what he did with that Ravens team. It looked like the Ravens of old, the Ravens that went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago and won. He actually was awarded with the highest honor for a coach, becoming Coach of the Year. How disappointing was it for the Baltimore Ravens not to make it to the chip, especially since, everybody thought, especially once they got past the Patriots, that they were going to be the team to win the Super Bowl.
But I also think there was a faction of people out there that knew that this wasn't the same Patriot team that we've seen in the past. There were so many kinks in the armor along the way. They just happened to play in one of the worst divisions in the NFL, the AFC East. So they were still able to do what they've always done, but on a lower level. Baltimore was good, but you happened to run into a team that was hot in Tennessee. And we know in the NFL, once these wild card teams get hot, whether it's the Giants, whether it's the Steelers, whether it's the Eagles, once they get hot, even with a backup quarterback, the Eagles, when they're hot, and it's so hard to stop them on the road, at home. The playoffs are a completely new season.
Yeah, and I think that's what we love, America loves about football. Any given Sunday or Saturday, the tides can change, and we can see two teams that I don't think at the beginning of the year nobody was expecting to be in this position. Now let's shift to NFL honors because we definitely want to highlight some of these players. So Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year went to Nick Bosa. We saw him in the game on Sunday. He had, I think it was about 12 and a half quarterback hurries.
Yeah.
How good is this kid? And have we really seen him come to life yet?
The question should be, how good are his parents? Two sons going in the top 5 of the NFL draft, all from Florida, St. Thomas Aquinas High School, pipeline to Ohio State, 2 first-round draft picks. They're both completely dominant. Aside from injuries, there aren't many defensive linemen coming out in the past 10 years as good as these guys, but Nick Bosa is just on another level right now. He's now the J.J. Watt for them, and he'll continue to do that as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah. Offensive Player of the Year went to Michael Thomas of the Saints. How good is he? I mean, the separation he's able to create in man coverage. Is he, well, let's say this, was the award rightfully given to the right person?
I think only because his team went to the playoffs and Christian McCaffrey's team didn't. Christian McCaffrey easily could have been in that argument. He was in that argument, but I think he could have won it just as easily if he had played for a winning team. He didn't, so it went to the right guy this time.
Let's talk about Comeback Player of the Year, Ryan Tannehill.
No question.
At one point, we thought he was a bust.
Yes.
Then he gets into the Tennessee Titans system. Needless to say, Marcus Mariota kind of helped him because he wasn't playing well. Vrabel makes the decision, move Marcus out, let's shift Ryan in. Is he really this good? Or is he just in the right
We don't know yet. We don't know whether he's this good or not yet. It takes more than just one season and less than a season at that. You know, Rich Gannon, how good was he until he became Rich Gannon that we know today? So we can look at Ryan Tannehill coming from Miami, out of Texas A&M, they sling it all quarterback, and it didn't quite work out. Injuries was a big reason as well. He gets an opportunity here, taking over for Marcus Mariota, another running quarterback who just can't get it done. A lot like Jameis Winston, but he also had a running back that helped out a lot, who ultimately led the league in rushing. And he was hot from the beginning, hot in the middle, hot at the end, even hotter in the playoffs in terms of the running game. So, yeah, Ryan Tannehill, easily Comeback Player of the Year.
You had to bring up Jameis Winston. He wasn't on my list to talk about, but let's talk about him because you brought him up. Is he a bust?
You know, it's such an anomaly with him. You know, all these touchdowns equal that with interceptions. His offensive coordinator, former Jaguar quarterback, Byron Leftwich, you know, did a tremendous job with him. He's been absolutely abysmal for the time he's been in Tampa. He has all of these yards. He has all these touchdowns, but still the interceptions. Is he worth that big contract his agent's going to be looking for? Because I think he feels guilty for the money he might get. He needs to feel guilty knowing he hasn't produced.
And as Jameis Winston said earlier this season, he has the potential to be the best. We just haven't seen it on paper because he became the first quarterback in NFL history to throw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. I'll say so myself, Jameis, that's not the way you want to be the best. We need to see better numbers out of you. The
one thing I keep remembering is when he came out of college and John Gruden was not a coach at the time. He was analyzing quarterbacks before the combine. He said he was the smartest quarterback he's ever run into. I mean, going by what's going on over in Las Vegas, whatever you go. We don't want to take what you said with a grain of salt. And winning with Tony Dungy's players, I don't take his word at all.
At all. So let's definitely bring up Calais Campbell because obviously he's a player here in Jacksonville. Walter Payton, Man of the Year. I think so many times these guys that win this award rightfully, we know them on the field, but we don't necessarily get to see them off the field. You are a native here in Jacksonville. Talk about Calais Campbell and just what he means to this community.
Oh, absolutely. Especially our community as we see living here, the things that go on in this community, you know, from the high crime rate and whatnot, people who need help and whatnot. He's done excellent. He's done a lot of what these other people have done, even some who were not nominated. I mean, a few years ago, we had Jacksonville native Sam Barrington from Terry Parker High School, went to the Green Bay Packers. He was their nominee. He didn't win. But because I've known him since he was 16 years old, I've seen what he's done behind the scene.
Right.
Whether it was $21,000 or $22,000 for kids' school books and school book bags and all of that before school, all of those things he did, awarded by the Chamber of Commerce in Green Bay, the same thing Calais is doing. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of how long you're in the league and how long you're doing it.
Yeah.
And he's been doing it for years. And this is a lifetime achievement award or career-wide achievement award for him.
Absolutely. And maybe the award that will seal his deal for an argument in the Hall of Fame. Now,
I think he's on a trajectory to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some of the NFL top free agents, because this is maybe one of the craziest classes we've seen in years. I mean, we can't talk about everybody, but let's talk about those who highlight the list. Full of quarterbacks. You got Dak Prescott, Drew Brees, and Tom Brady, both at 41 years old. You've got Phillip Rivers at 38, who recently made an off-season move that was kind of sketchy to some. He decided to pick up his family and move back here to Florida, which some people said, okay, what does that mean? Is his career over? Is he trying to maybe play for any set team in maybe Jacksonville or in Florida, maybe Tampa Bay? All three teams in Florida could use it, Phillip Rivers, just to talk about that. But when you look at these quarterbacks, also included in this list, top free agents, we just spoke about him, Ryan Tannehill, where do you see any of these players landing and why? So Dak, Drew, Tom, Phillip, and Ryan.
I think Dak is probably going to stay with Dallas.
Okay.
I think he has to stay with Dallas. You know, he and Zeke came in together. There's chemistry there. And now you have a new coach there. You want to see what he can really do.
Right.
You see what Jason Garrett has done for years. Nothing. I don't know how he stayed this long, especially under Jerry Jones. So Dak, I think you kind of keep him there for stability. I think he might just get used to going to the playoffs finally, but not the Super Bowl, because I don't believe he's going to be able to take his team to the Super Bowl.
Does he deserve top dollar? Will we see him?
That's a problem right there.
Yeah.
He's almost he doesn't necessarily fall in that Jameis Winston class. But as far as success goes, he kind of falls in that Jameis Winston class. But at least he gets to the playoffs. He won one game finally in the playoffs for the Cowboys. It's just one of those things. It's so difficult to put a dollar amount on what he did or what he's about to get paid.
So are they going to put the dollar amount on his potential or what he's done from the past?
Well, if he did it for the past, he shouldn't get too much more than he's getting now.
Right.
And if he did it on potential, he should get more, but not extravagant.
Not as much as Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, no one. Okay. No one gets that.
I just wanted you to make it clear for the Cowboys fans.
Oh, no one gets that kind of money.
The best quarterback.
No one gets that kind of money Mahomes is getting. He deserved it coming off of a championship.
Yeah.
Just 3 years deep in his career. Come on, this is a dream for him.
Right. Does Drew Brees stay in New Orleans? And do we see the Saints finally let Teddy Bridgewater go and maybe find a place where he can now shine as a starting quarterback in this league?
No, I can see Drew Brees. He is New Orleans right now. I mean, he's helped them through thick and thin. This is a marriage. So with sickness and health, to death do us part. He's not dead yet. He's going to be a Saint. He's been there for Katrina. He's been there after it. He's going to be there now.
So what do they do with Teddy?
Teddy, he's a good security blanket, but I think you can let him go because Taysom Hill is someone you can develop as one of these quirky quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a running league. Kyler Murray's shown that this year, and Jackson has shown it this year. So, yeah, I think that he could stay around. You could probably develop him as a quarterback.
So, Tom Brady sends out this cryptic tweet this week of him, walking out of a tunnel, all dark, dressed in black, for a commercial for Hulu. But at the end, he made it very clear. Hulu has all of these great deals. They have all of these great packages. And, oh, by the way, for the naysayers, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
will he go anywhere, or will we see the Patriots pay him $30 million to stay in Boston?
You know what? 1 year, if it's a 1 year contract for $30 million, I could see him doing that because he's an older guy. He doesn't need a long contract. He can go year to year. But this is the year of subliminal messages, whether it's a Super Bowl advertisement with kids in the cage or whether it's him making commercials kind of giving cryptic messages. I think that he stays in New England for at least one more season.
Okay.
And it might be his last season.
Maybe. We'll see. Well, according to Tom Brady, he's not going anywhere for a while. Now, Derrick Henry, he's also a free agent from right here down in Yulee. We know him. Amazing season with the Titans. I mean, what can we say? Are they going to renew him?
He's gotten incrementally better as the years have gone by. In fact, this was one of his make or break years, and he did exactly that. He made it. But you hear these national shows that's talking about that he should not be renewed because he's had so much mileage. He's such a big guy. He's so physical. He's not as physical as people think. He's more finesse than physical for a guy his size. And so I think that it would be in their best interest to sign him because he's just as big a reason as Ryan Tannehill to continue whatever they're doing right now. Vrabel, he knows his team. I know he has some say-so in when the general manager makes his move. I think he stays.
And I think they'll keep him too because with Mike Vrabel going into his second year as a coach, trying to keep the same pieces around him that put together such a spectacular postseason run, we want to see if he can do the same thing. Right, you can't disrupt that. Melvin Gordon, is he going to stay a Charger?
Melvin Gordon's been complaining forever.
Yeah.
So I think that, Antonio Gates left. Now you look at this cryptic message from Phillip Rivers. He's in Florida now. We don't know where he may end up, and he may leave himself, might be gone himself. I see them looking completely, especially with the relocation. They're looking for a rebuild. They can get away with it. So they don't need him either. Running backs, you can replace a running back these days, especially the way the NFL is. So there are running backs coming out that you just throw it in. They can just do their thing. Melvin Gordon's not going to be there in San Diego. I don't believe so.
Gotcha. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit because coming up this weekend, we're going to see the re-emerging of a league that we saw years ago coming back to fruition, the XFL. Okay, so it was originally here in 2001. Okay, it was a league that was partly owned by the WWF at the time, which is now the WWE, and also NBC. So they started a couple years ago, founding this new league, so to speak, in 2018, and now they're relaunching it in 2020. Of course, we know that Vince McMahon, a billionaire, right, is now over this, and they're structuring it a little bit different. So instead of being centrally owned and operated by the league, it's not a franchise model. It's going to be with ownership solely by the league. What are we going to see out of the XFL? What can we expect? And will they stay around a little bit longer than last time?
With all the little funky things going around structurally and whatnot, it still comes down to, are these players good enough for people to watch after being consumed with top-notch football, both in the collegiate level and the NFL level? For a league, and it has to get out of that stigma of looking like a WWE league, which is a comical thing to some people. This is the league who brought us one of the best marketing tools inadvertently ever. He Hate Me. Come on now. He Hate Me came from there. He became one of the biggest stars of the league and wasn't even a star. And so it comes down to quality. I don't think what are they going to do differently than all of these other leagues from the USFL till now, going against the NFL or even just being a pro team? I just don't see them doing anything for the long term. This is another cash grab or maybe or whatever it is, but I don't think it's going to do well.
Well, let's talk about how they are structured because either way they're starting, people are going to watch it because it's football. The NFL's, so to speak, off for right now until we start getting closer to the combine and a pro days and the NFL draft. So it's a 10-game season with a 2-week postseason. They have landed some super TV partners. They've got ABC and ESPN as well as Fox Sports. And then they've got 8 teams. So when you look at it, it's an East and West conference. In the West, you've got the Dallas Renegades, which is coached by Bob Stoops. So it'll be interesting to see him coaching again. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, he's a collegiate coach coming over to the pro game. Once again, they're bringing personalities and hoping it helps out the play of the players, but it's still coming down to the quality of the players who are out there. I mean, here in the U.S., you want everything to be top-notch. If it's going to be WNBA, you at least want the best women playing. If it's going to be in the NFL, you want the best players out there. College football the same way. Even in the FCS, which is 1AA, you at least want the best of the FCS. This isn't the best we're going to get. If they're just going to be the best of the XFL, unless they can consistently put a product out there that makes people get up, people will watch more NFL Network than watch that.
Yeah.
Or they'll watch more of the draft than watch that.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Yeah. So the other teams, we've got the Houston Roughnecks, interesting name, right? Coached by June Jones, the LA Wildcats, coached by Winston Moss. The Seattle Dragons, coached by Jim Zorn. We know him from the NFL.
Way
and
back.
then way back. The Eastern Conference, DC Defenders, Pep Hamilton, who's also the coach and the GM. The New York Guardians, coached by Kevin Gilbride. We've seen him in the NFL as well. St. Louis Battlehawks, coached by Jonathan Hayes. And then the Tampa Bay Vipers, coached by Mark Trestman. So they actually, one interesting thing that the XFL has, they have a 9th team. And this 9th team is sort of like a practice squad for the overall league that carries about 40 players. They have a separate coach, and they're housed in Texas along with the Dallas Renegades. And so what the league has done is set up this 9th team so that should injuries happen, so to speak, for some players, they can go right in, pluck them out. Players that know the system are following during the league and, just come right in and play. Is this something, because from those people that I've talked to that are close to the XFL, one of the things that they're trying to do and really passionate about is with, changes to rules, maybe seeing the NFL adopt some of these policies that the XFL is going to have. Will we see any changes like that, you think, in the next couple of years?
Some of them are good ideas when you're talking about plucking players from a lot of a practice squad for any team who may want them.
Yeah.
That's good. A nice little grab bag of players you can do. I can see it. The NFL has, swallowed their pride before and has taken the 2-point conversion from college and started doing it. So this could be something that they could be interested in. How many features of this league is the NFL going to be interested in? The majority of these players, especially the ones who turn out to be very good, their goal is to get to the NFL anyway.
Right, to get
so
back.
How does that continuously help this product moving forward when some of these players who turn out to be good players, just like Kurt Warner turned out to be a good player for arena football years ago, then a grocery guy, then the NFL. That's their ultimate goal. They have their loyalty because this is who's paying them, but their dream is the NFL. And it could hurt this league because if it's wholesale movement going to another league, going to the NFL, they don't have the talent to bring right in right away, to continue it.
Well, one thing they are doing is they're allowing guys to come in right from high school. So,
really?
Those guys that maybe don't get a scholarship for football, maybe don't have the grades, maybe need a little bit more attention in terms of their attitude, are going to be able to go in. I think the cap off is I'm sure you guys will go look it up on Wikipedia when we're done if I'm wrong, but I think it's 18 or 19 they'll let you come in. And so when you talk about playing guys $2,500 a week, 18, 19-year-old kid, that's better than getting a regular everyday job.
Yeah, it's better than getting an everyday regular job, but you're also talking about chances off, you didn't get a scholarship coming out of high school, you're probably not a quality player to go into college to begin with, let alone a professional team. If you had guys like Maurice Claret, who had his issues back in the day coming into the league, that's a different story. Or, there was Callahan Bright, who came out of Florida State, who would have been an absolutely phenomenal player years ago, couldn't come, he got suspended in school. In fact, I think he got expelled. Went to Florida, couldn't get into Florida State because of his grades. He ended up going to a smaller school and things just fell apart for him.
Right.
If you have players like that, that's more believable. Not getting scholarships because you've done something off the field, but then you now have character issues you may have to worry about in the future.
And work out. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to watch. Another thing, though, they do have their league championship on April 26th, which for most teams in the NFL, they will be starting OTAs in May. So that will give these guys, a chance to get their film together, get healthy, take a few weeks off, and then make a push to get back in the league. Because when you look at these overall rosters, and of course there's not time to go over all of them, but when you see the Cardell Joneses, guys that could possibly get back into the league, possibly whether it is make a practice squad or, just for the love of the game, have a shot again, because we know that when you're coming out of high school, you may make it to college. You look at some of these rosters, they have guys who have played in the league. Then you have some of the guys who were on the AAF, in the AAF league. When that folded, now they're playing in the XFL. So the potential to get them back to the league is there, because what this league is trying to do is to give players another opportunity to get back. So they could kind of become a feeding ground for the NFL, don't you think?
Yeah. Do you think they're trying to get these players to get back to the NFL, or would they rather grow their own brand with these quality players so they have a quality league? You know, it wouldn't be in their best interest to have players exclusively going to the NFL and just using this as a stepping stone. You don't come on the scene putting this type of money in to be a stepping stone. You want to be your own brand where people believe this is the best place they should be, which will be difficult. You still have Canada out there as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of layers to this, but it's a good idea, and especially once again, I go back to that, having the pool of players from a practice squad to pick from. I mean, that's a creative idea, and I think the NFL will get on it one day.
That is definitely creative. And when you look at somebody like Vince McMahon, he's a businessman.
Yes.
And he's definitely proven from taking the WWF to the WWE, he has the money for this league to belong. And it was said to me that the team in St. Louis, because obviously they don't have the Rams anymore, so you've got a city that's been hungry for a football team, they're already sold out. Season tickets are sold out. So it looks pretty good for those people who just love the game of football and want to have it extended for a couple more months before we go back into OTAs and teams are allowing, fans to come out and watch. So it should be interesting. But the schedule this weekend, because this is, the season, they're going to kick it off this weekend, So February 8th, Seattle will be at DC on ABC at 2 p.m. LA will play at Houston on Fox at 5. And then on Sunday, they'll play as well. Tampa Bay will be visiting the New York Guardians at 2 p.m. on Fox. And then St. Louis at Dallas, 5 p.m. on ESPN. So it'll definitely be something to watch. Now, let's kind of close out with, because this is the first time we've talked in a while. And so obviously, that, a couple weeks ago, we lost the legendary Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
I know that you follow a lot of HBCU sports. You're heavily delved into basketball. When you look at his legacy, and when you go back and forth to these HBCUs, what kind of footprint are we going to see Kobe's legacy leaving on these schools from years from now?
He's always going to be someone that the entire world thinks about, as we see right now. He wasn't just a community guy or an NBA-wide guy. We're now seeing his scope right now. Everybody all over the world. I mean, you go to countries that don't even follow basketball, at least you didn't think they did, and they know Kobe Bryant, and they're mourning Kobe over this. His legacy, and now with his daughter being involved, it kind of takes the public consciousness even tighter. And this isn't something that's going away anytime soon, if at all. And Kobe's, his legacy was already stamped. It was just a matter of him going to the Hall of Fame next year, and now they're moving it up to 2020 so he could go in. His daughter being, I had video of his daughter playing and seeing how well she played, and then she had all the tutelage in the world and opportunities, but it still takes talent. Your parents can't go out there and play for you, and she's done well. And I think the University of Connecticut, the women's basketball team, is retiring her number because she wanted to go there. So his legacy just goes beyond anything I thought it would have been. And I knew him for more than outside of basketball, more than just basketball. I knew what he did on the outside with the book club and all these things he's done. But wow, the way it has touched the rest of society.
Yeah.
I mean, period. It crossed racial bounds, and in this age we live in of social strife, everything is just running the right way right now with Kobe, and those types of things bring us together. Having something like that we have in common. I know there's some people looking for their little 15 seconds of fame, saying, I don't see why he's getting all of this attention, and so-and-so just died the other day, or our soldiers died the other day. We mourn our soldiers when we hear about the story. And when we hear about the story of our soldiers, we mourn them. There's 30 just got killed, I believe.
Wow.
And there's hundreds of people because there's family and friends.
Involved.
We don't know them until we hear the news.
Right.
We have zero connection other than knowing that they are protecting our freedom.
Right.
But still, and unless we fake it, there isn't anything really visceral for the long term. On the other hand, you had Kobe Bryant, who hundreds of millions of people knew about.
First name basis.
First name basis, Mamba, all of that. Mamba out, everyone knew him from around the world. So when they mourn, it's going to be bigger than 30 soldiers dying when their family and friends knew them. I told somebody just on social media the other day when they were making that same case, I don't remember you cried at my mother's funeral.
Right.
You know why? You didn't know her.
Right.
You had no connection. We had 20 years of a connection with Kobe Bryant.
Absolutely.
As a 17-year-old going across the stage with David Stern, watching him under a microscope through 20 years, at least 6 months a year. That's 10 whole years.
Right.
His goods and his bad, his poor decisions, not mistakes,
Right.
his poor decisions and his rejuvenation and his comeback.
Yeah.
We saw his young family go through it. They weathered the storm. 4 girls came from that.
Yeah.
4 beautiful girls came from that. And one is gone now, and it's a travesty, but they'll live on because we do.
Yeah.
And so that matters to a lot of people because a lot of people got that news at the same time. They felt they knew him, and the ones who didn't know him, they knew of him.
Right.
And that's what matters.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you so much. Now, before we leave, you do have HBCU Football Matters.
Yes.
So tell us what that is. How can people follow you? Because I know you are passionate about the media when it comes to giving media attention to our HBCUs. And I definitely appreciate it because having been a graduate of the illustrious Hampton University. Tell us about HBCU Football Matters.
HBCU, historically black colleges and universities, they do not get the press, as you probably know, as all of these other schools throughout the country. Alabama, of course. I'm not expecting that. But to at least have it mentioned on a nightly broadcast locally when there aren't too many things going on, I think that needs to be identified and taken care of. I mean, black people buy Pepsi too. So you're talking about sponsorships.
Probably more.
Sponsorships, as far as the sponsors and all that stuff has been touched. We want to bring more of a light and illuminate what HBCUs are. Not because they're great teams or because they're bad teams, but because these people are enjoying the game just like anybody else on the college ranks. Nearly 10% of NFL players in the Hall of Fame are from HBCUs. We need to know more about these players before they get to the NFL.
Right.
Don't jump on the bandwagon of a Tariq Cohen or the Eric Armstead up there down in New Orleans coming from Arkansas Pine Bluff, or even a Titus Howard coming from a 4-7 Alabama State team from the SWAC going to the Houston Texans in the first round.
Wow.
Don't jump on it then. You call yourself a draftnik, get down and dirty, and find out who these people really are.
Absolutely. And we would be remiss not to mention that right here in Jacksonville, we have Edward Waters College. Who tomorrow we are seeing them unveil the groundbreaking ceremony of their new stadium. How phenomenal is that? I just want to say hello to a good friend of mine, their athletic director, Dr. Paul Bryant. Amazing for them to finally get a home that they can call their own. How big is that, not only just for the city of Jacksonville, but for a small private institution like Edward Waters?
I think that's exactly what it is. A private institution relies on money that isn't completely government money, so they can use all the money they can in terms of people who are going to come because of the facilities. And by the way, they just moved up to the SIAC.
Yes, they did.
So and they're not complete members yet. I believe it takes 2 years, but regardless, they've played this past season. They've looked well in some games. Games they should have been completely overmatched. They were able to hang in there. Might have still gotten the loss, but they had a lot of fight. And the trajectory on their season or their future looks great right now. So adding this to the equation, plus the fanfare, plus the alumni base hopefully coming back supporting, and others, this gets them an opportunity to show others what they do, not just on a football basis, but finding out academically. Some people don't even know what this is, who this is or who they are in the state of Florida, let alone, other states. And it reminds me of Miles College in Alabama when they were just a putrid team for years on end. Now they're one of the better teams. They went to the playoffs this past season. So it looks like it's a possibility, especially with this Florida talent. It's always, even the 3rd, 4th, and 5th tier talent in Florida can help you win on some level of football.
Absolutely. And so if you guys are here in Jacksonville, you want to get out, go support Edward Waters College. They're in season right now for women's and men's basketball. So definitely support your black college here in Jacksonville, Florida. Thank you so much for joining me on this Super Bowl recap show this evening. Travis, how do people follow you and get involved with HBCU Football Matters?
Well, we have an HBCU Football Matters YouTube page. So just put in HBCU Football Matters. Go to YouTube. Put it in the link, put it in the search bar, you'll find it there. Or you can go to Facebook and do the same thing. HBCU Football Matters. HBCU Football Matters. And join some of the diatribes we have on it. We have a bit of conversation from time to time.
The dialogue.
So, yeah, the dialogue will be great, and and some things that has nothing to do with HBCU as far as that goes, but has to do with the history of people who made it possible for HBCUs to exist.
Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to say thank you to my production staff. Thank you to my sponsor, 227 Boutique. This evening, you guys know where to catch me every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Satara J here, signing off for Get in the Game. Don't forget to head over to 904live.com. You don't want to miss an episode. This month, we are launching a new series entitled Life After Football, where I look into the life and legacy of those men who have played the game of football and have now shifted in another career. Thank you so much for joining me. We will end off with this tribute from Peyton Manning to Kobe Bryant there at the NFL Honors. Let's take a listen.
Lakers locker room in 1999, we immediately recognized mutual appreciation for what it took to do our jobs well. His sport was different, but the way that Kobe prepared, the way he analyzed the game, that was very familiar. Kobe loved not just basketball, but all sports. He was a superstar and a fan, a huge admirer of his hometown Philadelphia Eagles. Kobe gave a pep talk to the team before a playoff game the year they won the Super Bowl. He talked to a lot of teams and players over the years at every level of sports, from youth teams like his daughter Gigi's to the pros. Kobe understood the importance of cultivating the future of sports, and more than that, of sharing the valuable lessons sports teach about life. He didn't just give advice, though. Kobe was always asking questions. Hey, Peyton, what are you doing at the line of scrimmage? Why did you make this audible? He was trying to understand football as deeply as possible. Like a true champion, he never stopped learning. We knew him as a superhero, but in his world, and in a curious, passionate fan in ours. The NFL joins the country and the world in mourning the loss of 9 individuals who left their own indelible imprint on the lives of many. And our heartfelt thoughts and prayers are with their families. May God's peace be with all of them. And I sure do miss my friend, Kobe Bryant.